Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Heart of Many Things with me, Mike, and my co-host,
Tom.
Now, joining us for this episode is Tom's American counterpart. He has, in fact, been cloned. Say hello, Tom.
Hello, I am also Tom. Thank you for having me, my clone, my sire.
It's fine. We can be assured that we will get where we're aiming to go with this episode. We do have a Tom.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Boo.
So, it's another roleplay games episode. My favourites. It's my favourite hobby. Tom's favourite hobby appears to be editing my voice out of podcasts. And presumably, someone's hobby is listening to us talk at length on various subjects. So thank you for tuning in today to our latest episode. We're going to be talking about live streams.
And RPG shows in general.
So, Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, since you are our guest today? Not you, Wilco. Shut your whore mouth.
I am the GM and host of an actual play role-playing game podcast, probably the reason I was asked to be on this episode. That show is called Shuffle Quest, and the premise is that a trio of fantasy adventurers are being shuffled throughout different pop culture universes on a big campaign to save the multiverse from a as yet undetermined threat that is causing the borders between worlds to break down. It is very silly and dumb. I love it, and we have gone to, so far, Men in Black World, Dragon Ball Z World, Sonic the Hedgehog World, and Mad Max World. So
yeah,
that kind of thing.
Surprisingly, they managed to be less competent than Will Smith in Men in Black, in the Men in Black world.
Will Smith is very confident. He used lateral thinking to solve the writing on paper puzzle.
Wilco, is this where you nicked your plot for Fifth Ed?
It's not at all where I nicked my plot for Fifth Ed.
We're playing a Fifth Ed game, and Wilco's like, the worlds are melting into each other, and you have to stop it. I'm like, Wilco.
Mine is much more. It's much more within. It's not like alternate universes or anything. It's very much within one world where there's some problems going down due to someone messing about with planar travel.
Evidently, you're less creative than other Tom.
To be fair, the worlds are collapsing is not a particularly original concept. I will admit that.
I've been meaning to ask in concept, Yankee Tom, have you read Craig Shaw Gardner's Cineverse cycle?
I have not.
Okay, so it starts off with Slaves of the Volcano God. Similar concept, except they're jumping between movies.
Huh.
Pretty good book series. Someone gets a Captain Decoder ring and a cereal box, lets them jump between films, and the villain is a someone from a cartoon full of rabbits, where they would, like a Saturday morning toddler's cartoon, where he was some wizard, but he'd always be foiled very easily. And he decided that he really just hated losing all the time and was going to jump movie genres.
Incredible.
And then sort of learnt all the tropes and what works in different movies and what doesn't, and then exploited them.
What was the name of this again? I want to look this up.
Craig Shaw Gardner's Cineverse cycle.
Excellent. I will for sure be checking that out.
It's where I've learned that any character with a pencil-thin mustache is definitely a villain.
You didn't just learn that from life?
You know what? I've literally never met anyone with a pencil-thin mustache.
Well, good for you.
By that logic, I must only
villains.
meet good people. Yeah, I must only meet pleasant people.
So normally we start off with a definition, and I found it. I think most people listening will know what.
Normally, we also ask you what hat you're wearing today, Tom. What hat are you wearing?
Oh, today. Well, yeah. Why doesn't our guest answer the hat question?
If he's wearing a hat, he certainly can. Are you wearing a hat? Or the Tom?
Do headphones count as a hat?
They do not count as a hat. Would you?
Then I'm hatless then.
You cultureless American.
Yeah, it's true.
You should have a Stetson or a baseball cap at the very least.
I got my 10-gallon hat from when I poke the cows.
So, definitions. We can move on to that now, finally. Now, I'll stop derailing us for a little bit.
Sorry, I tried to grab my hat and I've temporarily mislaid it, but I'll find a picture for later.
Just imagine what I would do to a campaign. We're going to derail a conversation this badly.
So yeah, we normally start off with a definition of some sort, and while I'm sure most of our listeners know what streaming is, it's actually quite hard to find a definition of streaming as in RPG streams, like written down. So I had to write my own definition this week and not resort to Wikipedia. So I've gone with streaming is a show that can be watched live as it is recorded, and then normally it's saved for later playback via Twitch or YouTube, etc. And then
I would add the word unscripted to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
No, yeah.
If it's scripted, it's not really streaming.
That's like theater.
It's just a live show.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I would say that when it's streaming, it's generally people's, I hesitate to say genuine reactions. There's a lot of exaggerated reactions out there when people are streaming video games, etc. But it's generally supposed to be a little bit slice of life, fly on the wall.
Yeah. And then the other definition I put in there because of the style of show Shuffle Quest is actual/real play, which is now a massive... There are so many podcasts to the point where the other day I found a website called RPG Casts, and it has just a list of all. Well, it probably doesn't have all, but it has a large number of the actual play and real play podcasts that are out there. So these are basically RPG streams or shows where the characters and the DM are actually playing the game. It's you can hear them playing the mechanics. You don't necessarily get the dice rolls kept in the final edit, but they're actually playing the game for real, as opposed to it just being like a storytelling kind of show. Like there may be beats in there, but people are reacting as if they were real players, because they are real players. Does that sound like an accurate definition to you, Tom?
Sure does.
So, like, actual play or real play, it sounds like there is also fake play.
I think the distinction is that there are also like RPG shows where people like talk about RPGs and aren't playing them, and actual play is like, no, this is the game. I don't know about fake play. Now that you mentioned that, that's exciting. I want to listen to a fake play show.
You'd be like, you rolled it. Who cares? We already know what happens next. Shut up, Tim.
I suppose. I mean, there are RPGs that are kind of more towards kind of collaborative storytelling, and maybe
all RPGs are collaborative storytelling.
Yes, but like there's the spectrum, right? From kind of very mechanic heavy to something that's more story driven. And I wonder if maybe someone was trying to draw a distinction there. I don't actually know. I just know that this type of podcasts are called actual or real play, which explains what they are. But
I'm just waiting to start like live streaming a LARP. Let's go all in on this. Just someone running around a LARP with a camera. Everyone has to pretend they're not there.
There are LARPs you can do without like getting in costume and running around.
Yeah, you could definitely do something like the by night ones we were discussing on the last episode. That would work.
Do vampire and just edit out the Sombra or something.
Oh, that'd be amazing if you could do live editing out of what's on the camera. I know there's also over in Canada, airsofting. You have to record all airsoft games, and there's an airsoft-based LARP that exists. So they're already got like little cameras on everyone's guns for that, so they could maybe set it up that way. That'd be interesting. That's the next $1 million idea for someone out there.
Is the Canadian aspect like crucial, or is that just something that happened coincidentally? Because that is not a part of Canadian culture that I have ever heard of, that they are real into airsoft streams.
Oh, they all ask permission as well and share poutine afterwards. It's real nice. Problem is they get lost and need rescuing by Mounties.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the reason that's Canada specifically is because they basically brought in a rule saying you can't have realistic firearms. You can't have them. And then they were like, oh, we also have some exceptions. Like you need them for filming movies. So yeah, it's fine if you're filming. So the loophole there is every airsoft game has to be filmed. Yeah.
Incredible.
So examples of some shows that you may have seen or heard. Shuffle Quest, which we're going to talk more about at length later. What's Taz?
That's the Adventure Zone, which I think is pretty famous among streams.
I thought it was a small mammal from Oceania.
So, I mean, I suppose maybe you'll want to talk more about our next one in the list. The Adventure Zone is one that I got into via several friends who kept saying, you're going to love this, you should listen to it. And they also were like, oh, you'd love... I can never pronounce it right. Mbam, which is like my brother.
Mabimbam.
Mabimbam, that's how you say it. So I've not listened to Mabimbam yet, but I have listened to the Adventure Zone, and I just really love the dynamic. It's three brothers and their dad. One of the brothers is the GM, and basically their dad kind of ignores the rules all the time, and they just keep having he's like, I can do this thing, and everyone's like, are you sure? Is that what you're spelled? Yeah. Oh yeah, Zone of Truth being a massive meme. Like he casts that all the time. But that's really fun. It starts off in a fairly.
Does he ever cast it and then get meta? He's just like, yeah, there's a Zone of Truth. So, what time did you actually get home last night, Johnny? Like that. Like, Dad, it doesn't work like that. He's like, oh yeah, watch me. I'll draw a chalk circle.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff like that. They've done a massive arc that is now complete, like a full campaign, and they do like live shows of it. And they've now moved on to doing Monster of the Week, which is an interesting RPG system I really want to try.
I just want to weigh in on the Adventure Zone.
Yeah. Oh, please do.
Yeah, the Adventure Zone like really is. It's like the biggest one in terms of fame and exposure, and it's one of those things where it's like you can't get mad at it because like it definitely deserves to be. Like they're so funny and so good, and the way that they started off, and you can kind of tell that they are not putting their whole effort into it. They're kind of goofing the game, but as it continues, like they get so into it, and the characters become like very real and beloved and hilarious, and it's like so fucking good. I cannot say enough about the Adventure Zone. I would not have started Shuffle Quest if not for the Adventure Zone. It rules. Listen to it.
Yeah, it's as you say. Like I think people who are used to playing RPGs and then come into it and they're like, oh, they're just playing through a standard adventure in the first. Like it feels at the start like it's a bit slow to get going, but it is totally worth pressing on to get to the stuff where you really start feeling for the characters. And I know many people who've been like, I got to the end of that first the balance arc, and there were actual tears when spoilers happened.
Yeah.
not gonna spoil it here.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, so I mean, it's got a following, but I feel deservedly so. Mike, what was next on our list?
Oh, next on our list is probably the most well-known out of all of them, and that's Critical Role. I don't know if Critical Role has the largest viewer base. I would not be unconfident saying that it probably does.
I would definitely say it's the biggest of the D&D streams. I don't know how it compares to the Adventure Zone, but this is where you get to the weird bits of the internet where you can like two things that are as popular as each other and not actually know about the other thing at all.
Yeah, I've never actually watched Critical Role, pretty much just because like it just seems too big to get into, and I don't have the time, and it's scary.
I've not watched. I don't really watch the streams of it. I listen to the podcasted version. I'm miles behind. Mike's much further on than I am.
I'm on about episode 60 of Critical Role. Which honestly I only started watching after being told repeatedly to watch/listen to it. I listen to it on podcasted form because, like Tom, I really can't just sit there and watch 3.5 hours of a roleplay game. I could take part in like 6 hours of a roleplay game, but I can't just watch it. Also because I'd rather be doing something. So I'd rather be playing a video game or playing a roleplay game or painting. When I choose to listen to these actual plays, it is on public transport or when driving or when at work sometimes if I'm not concentrating too hard, so that I can process it auditorily or in the background, rather than having to focus completely on it, because it's not enough to focus on 100%. I need to be doing something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel I'd agree. I tend to, anything that's over about an hour, I feel like I need to be doing something else while it's on. Shorter stuff. I think actually the first stream I watched was the one that they did on Geek and Sundry with Will Wheaton as the DM, and that was like split up into 30 or 40-minute episodes, and that was a good amount for me to watch. Whereas Critical Role, they're all like 3 and a bit hours, and I have to listen to them as a podcast so that I can kind of phase out of bits because there's just so much.
Yeah, and that's where length comes in. So we'll talk about length later, and what is good show length. Because I didn't start with Dice Camera Action. We'll talk about it for a bit longer before going on to what I did start with. Wait, did I say Dice Camera Action or Critical Role?
You just said dice.
Yeah.
Or I didn't start with Critical Role. I started with Dice Camera Action. Critical Role has an absolute load to crow about. I actually think the fact that they've recently bought their own studio is incredible. So they're moving from Geek and Sundry. They've bought a studio premises. They're now putting out more shows than just Critical Role. The fact they've turned it into a full-fledged business with support staff, not just the cast, is incredible. That's a huge achievement. And I do think that there are streams older than Critical Role. I don't know. Does Adventure Zone predate it?
No.
I don't actually know, but probably not.
I think Acquisitions Incorporated does.
I've not heard of Acquisitions Incorporated.
It's Penny Arcade.
Oh, okay. I have, but I'd forgotten I'd heard of it.
Acquisitions Incorporated is, I think, quite a bit older, because Acquisitions Incorporated was originally podcast, not stream. And podcasting's certainly been around longer than Twitch.
I've heard of that, but not ever gotten into it as well. I mean, again, it's just one of those things that's like, got 1,000 episodes. Like, God, geez, I'm never going to finish. Why start?
Hey, if I can get through Naruto, I can get through Critical Role.
Good point.
Just saying. But Critical Role is often held up as best in class by a lot of people. I don't necessarily think that I would call it best in class. I think that Matt Mercer is perhaps best in class at GMing and certain things, but I don't necessarily think the show is best in class. They have a lot of very good props. They are all voice actors professionally, which does add some weight and gravitas to certain scenes. But Matt's world building is very good. It's a little bit derivative, but the entirety of fantasy as a genre is derivative. Let's be very honest there. There's no such thing as non-derivative fantasy.
Like, they're all some flavor of Lord of the Rings. There's always elves and dwarves. The dwarves are always Scottish. That's how it is. I
suppose while we're still on Taz and Critical Role, I think the thing you mentioned about them having voice actors in Critical Role, I think it's important. Like, they've brought in slightly different audiences. I feel like Taz is fans of Mabim and Bam have come along and started listening to it, who may not necessarily have been into RPGs before. It's a D&D based stream, and they got into it that way. And then Critical Role, I think there's maybe you're getting more people who are maybe video game fans who have heard of the voice actors from their large amount of video game work. I mean, Matt Mercer is in like Monster Hunter World now and has been in loads of other stuff before. So I wonder if they brought in two slightly different audiences as well. I don't know, because you can never know what podcast numbers are, but I feel like there is that slightly different kind of mix, and maybe that's why Taz is a bit more in the kind of comedy side of things, and Critical Role is more in kind of what I'd call like a traditional RPG stream.
This has its comedy though. The minute they had a gnome bard decide that his form of enacting a distraction was going to be to wander into the orc camp surrounded by a ball of force, like an impenetrable wall spell. Nothing gets in or out. Except he walked in rolling it like a hamster ball, singing the Russian Trollolol song, and rolling it round the camp until all the orcs chased him. That was hysterical.
That does sound amusing. I haven't got to that scene yet, but there are definitely funny moments. I'm not saying...
Yeah, no, it definitely has, but it also has a lot of drama. And it also suffers from the very realistic fault of players discussing for an hour what their plan for the combat is.
Oh, man.
Which
no.
is the one bit of the show I hate listening to, because it just slows everything down so much. And we all know it happens, right? Like, I shared a meme yesterday on this server about players getting to a junction and spending an hour deciding whether to go left or right without looking around the corner, and the junction was just a square box that met up into one corridor at the end.
Yeah.
Too many games. Too many games like that.
There's the good old Oglaf comic, where someone's written "You are overthinking it" on a wall, and
he's like, "What is
the trap?"
Like, yeah. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that, like, Dungeons and Dragons has the genesis of being a game that is designed to allow tactical fantasy combat, and like they've tried to move away from that and have it be more storytelling and character based, but like the rules still are so focused on tactical fantasy combat that you kind of can't escape that. And guess what isn't interesting to listen to if you're not part of it? Tactics.
To the point where sometimes, like, the way that Dungeons and Dragons as a game is written, everything's in 5 foot squares.
Yeah.
And you're like, life doesn't work in 5-foot squares. Like, I want to cast Cone of Cold. How many goblins do I hit? Oh, only this one, and this one, because they're only stood in this square, this square, and this square. And most of the time, we run without a grid or squares anyway. And then we're like trying to negotiate how many goblins might be in the cone.
Mm-hmm. And like, this is a thing that is heretical to say as a tabletop RPG person. But like, if you want to have tactical combat, like, a video game is going to do that 1,000 times better.
Or a tabletop war game.
Oh, fair enough.
Bust out your Warhammer or your Warlords, or play Kingdom Death and get horribly traumatized by all the phalluses. Just phalluses everywhere.
Kingdom Death. Do you live? Oh, I gave birth and died. I mean, it's realistic, but
I don't know if I'd say realistic. I've seen those minis. I own those minis. So Critical Role is really good, and it does focus heavily on the story, but it is also definitely an example of a game, and it gets a really weird criticism, where I've seen people online saying, oh, what show can I watch to improve my GMing that isn't as unrealistic as Critical Role? And people are like, what's unrealistic about Critical Role? It's a normal RPG game. Yeah, but everyone in it's a voice actor. That's not going to make them a better player.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to make them better at doing a voice. Like, Matt Mercer's a great person to learn GM tips from.
I mean, he even has a GM tips videos, right?
The fact that he now has a budget and a really high-level production, and all of those expensive Dwarven Forge terrain pieces, because he has a partnership with them, that's not unrealistic. It just means he has tools we all wish we had, but don't. You can still learn without the tools. But yeah, I didn't start on Critical Role. I started on Dice Camera Action. Has anyone else watched Dice Camera Action?
I watched a few episodes, I think like the first 20, because it was long ago before Shuffle Quest, and I had gotten the Curse of Strahd source book and wanted to run it, and was like, I wonder, how most people DM this, and I saw that there was an official stream of it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to check it out to see how this game runs. And yeah, it's pretty good. Chris Perkins is the DM. Love is good.
I ended up binging it. Unlike Critical Role, it's not 3.5 hours per episode, it's about 1. They keep it into these bite-sized, manageable, like you'd normally watch something for 50 minutes on the telly, which makes it easier to focus. They're not all at a table, and we'll get into face-to-face versus remote later. But because they're remote, I feel that they don't talk over each other as much, because they're not conversing when someone else is doing something. Because at a normal table, 2 players will have a little joke or conversation while one person's talking to them about their action. You can't do that when you're doing it remotely, because it messes up comms. So it becomes easier to listen to.
There's a few more you've got in this list that I've not heard of.
They spawned from Dice Camera Action.
Oh, wow.
Dice Camera Action is D&D's official stream. They play through a lot of the modules, so the downside to it is it might give you a lot of spoilers for things like Tomb of Annihilation or Curse of Strahd. And that's fair. But they've got a couple of really good players and voice actors on there. A particular shout out to Nate Sharp, or Nate Wants the Battle, because he had clearly not had much experience playing games before he started doing the stream. He's primarily a musician, and he played a bard. And he got a lot of flack. There's always one person in every show that gets a lot of stick from the fan base for not being good enough, or not deserving to be on the show. Everyone always seems to hate someone for some reason. And at the start, it was Nate, because he was very quiet and he didn't understand the rules very well, and people said that he was disinterested. And you know what? He also had a lot of career things going on at the same time, trying to get into voice acting.
Mm-hmm. Now, he's most people's favourite player. After 3 seasons, I think they're in season 4 now. I've not watched season 4 yet because I started Critical Role. I'm going to finish Critical Role campaign 1, then go back to it. He's fantastic. He's hilarious. And some of the scenes between him and some of the NPCs have been phenomenal. And there's a whole arc in season 3 that I'm not going to spoil, which highlights how good a player people can be when you give them the chance and the encouragement and the time to flourish. There's been a couple of spin-off shows. Dark and Dicey is produced by Nate Sharp now, so he's got his own show, which is also a D&D official stream. So it's on their package, and that is their streaming an evil campaign. Ooh, cool.
Where one of the players is a Kenku, I think.
Kenku is the crow race that can only speak things that they've heard and memorized from other people.
Pretty sure one of the players is a Kenku.
That's incredible. Man, I want to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be hard to play well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the cast of characters for Dark and Dicey. That'll go into the show notes for anyone who wants to see it. I've not watched it yet, but I will. I'll get around to it because I'm a big fan of Nate's work. I think he's really good. Trapped in the Birdcage was another spin-off that Commander Holly, who is a streamer and a YouTuber, she plays Strix in Dice Camera Action. She did Trapped in the Birdcage, which is a game set in Sigil, which is the setting between planes with all the gates to the different planes of existence. So once again, that's going to be wackier or more. Wacky is probably not the right word. Wacky implies a level of joviality. It's going to be more Uncanny Valley than your average D&D game. So, these things have spun off into their own little webs. And there's also, we didn't put Task Force Grey on there.
No, I don't know what that is either, I'm afraid.
Task Force Grey is another one like Dice Camera Action that is GM'd by Christopher Perkins, who is one of the head designers for D&D. And that's the one with Joe Manganiello. Joe Manganiello. And it also has the lady that plays Karen from Daredevil.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So that's a good stream for people who want to get into it, but they don't know who. So people might be getting into these things just because they like Joe or Deborah Ann Wall. The same way that some people might have seen the Celebrity D&D with Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might go, oh, who's this that plays this? We need Judi Dench to start streaming the game.
I would watch that. I would watch the National Treasures, Judi Dench,
viewing.
Patrick Stewart.
Dame Judi Dench, Patrick Stewart,
Ian McKellen.
That would be the best game.
I mean, I would pay significant money to watch them play D&D. A lot of the streams we've mentioned so far, with the exception of Shuffle Quest and the latest season of the Adventure Zone, are D&D based. One I've just thrown in there, I know we're about to get on to something else as well, but one I've thrown in there is when I was about to start running, and we haven't actually started running it yet, but there was talks of me running a Rogue Trader game, and I know a lot of the 40k mythos, and I feel like I'd be able to do it, but I wanted to see how that game worked. There's a podcast called Fandible, and they have run a whole slew of different systems. One of the ones they did was Rogue Trader, but they're doing all sorts at the moment. They're doing Blood on the Trail, 10 Candles, which is the one with the matchsticks. They're doing Shadowrun. They're doing Sentinels of the Multiverse, apparently has one. They're doing Monster of the Week, Dark Heresy, Black Crusade, Vampire. They just, as a group, I don't know how many people are in.
Yeah, that is way more games than one group can play in a week unless they don't have jobs.
Yeah, I mean, there are some where they've played them and then they've stopped. So, for example, Rogue Trader was one of their earlier games that they've done. But that's just, I think just worth mentioning that there is a niche out there for every single type of game to be played, and there are lots of actual play podcasts now.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff on that website. Never heard of that before. And then there is Los Angeles by Night, which aired earlier this month and is GM'd by our guest on our previous episode, Jason Carl. I am excited to check this out. There are 2 episodes so far. I need to find the VODs because I'm just not capable of watching something that's recorded in LA time in real time.
Yeah, no, I really want to watch that because having played Vampire, it feels like a game that would be very interesting to watch because it's different. So different.
So different. So much darker, so much more grounded in so many ways. Yet still retaining that gothic fantasy edge. Because who doesn't love the World of Darkness? I love the World of Darkness. I
know it's your favourite, but it's a cool world if you haven't tried it. All those games are really interesting, and with Vampire 5th Ed coming out, it's going to be interesting to see how they update the other games to be in that system. We think we saw how that might work based on what we've seen so far from the rules, but it's a very, very good system.
We need to ask Phil Brocato if he's got any plans or interest in running a Mage of the Ascension one.
Ooh, yeah.
That would be hella something to listen to.
My new favorite shout is, I don't know if you saw when he updated his photo on Facebook.
No.
And then someone was like, my new favorite RPG shout is by Brucato's beard.
See, it works because of the alliteration, but Rothfuss has the beard.
Yes.
Patrick Rothfuss has the greatest beard, is yet to be outshone. All hail the beard. What are the beards like on your show, bro? Have we got any good beards going on?
Oh, on Shuffle Quest? Oh, we're beardless. We're shorn as hell. Yeah, it's awful.
You need to add a beard to that mix, man.
I know. I need
maybe
to get
someone that's lactose intolerant.
yeah, and maybe get a fantasy author who will never finish their trilogy and instead be a professional podcaster's friend.
He will finish that, and I will enjoy it. Thank you.
I saw recently...
Don't hurt my feelings like that.
I looked up Doors of Stone, just be like, has there been any news? And I saw that he was recently got an interview, and he's like, yeah, I feel like the Doors of Stone, really, it's going to be less of an end of a trilogy and more of the end of a prologue. And I'm like, you bitch, you promised me you had a trilogy.
Well, it's Kvothe's trilogy. There's just going to be more stories set in the Four Corners. Now, I don't know why there isn't a Four Corners RPG yet. Like, stream or no stream. Setting book.
Yeah, for real.
I mean, he's guested on Dice Camera Action. He's guested on Critical Role. He's very popular as an author and in the geek community. He's got very strong ties with Geek and Sundry. Why is there not a setting or a rule book for Four Corners yet? I mean, it's getting a TV show and a movie.
Yeah, and the magic system is very
translatable.
Defined, translatable, and different. Like, people would want to do artificing and write runes and shit.
It'd be great.
Like, I saw at in the local, my local comic store has the source book for Mistborn, which I gotta imagine is a less popular series than Name of the Wind. And that book is the size of a phone book with newsprint pages, so that it's got the maximum number of pages. If they can put that amount of effort into that, I have no reason why there shouldn't be a Kvothe-based RPG. Now that you mention it, now I'm pissed that that's not real.
Do you want to talk about show length, Mike?
Well, you and I have had many a good long conversation about length, sometimes even girth. But in this circumstance, we're restricting it to shows which have length and not girth.
I couldn't keep a straight face while you were saying that.
I'm just slowly nodding my head no.
So, show length. Critical Role is very long. You can't realistically listen to an episode in one sitting unless it is in the background and it's not something you're focusing on. Dice Camera Action's about an hour to an hour and a half, and they generally keep a good condensed episode in that as well. And I think that's something you can focus on if you need to. What show length did you aim for Shuffle Quest, and why?
Our ideal length was, and we do not always hit this ideal length, but was an hour, and it's for the reasons that you're describing. Like a show that's
is it above average, or are you just more modest than
that? We do tend to go a little over, which I don't like, but I mean I do edit these shows pretty thoroughly, and sometimes there's just not enough chaff. Like, taking anything else out would hurt the quality of the show, because they're good goofs. But yeah, definitely an hour is the target, just because it's easiest to listen to. It doesn't overstay its welcome too much, and it's what I would want. A lot of the decisions I made about Shuffle Quest is what would I want from a show? What are all the things that bug me? I'm going to take them all out. And one of them was just, again, they're too long sometimes. I don't have 3 hours to listen.
And I suppose part of that is, if you start generating in-jokes and things, if suddenly everyone's laughing at the table or something, you have to keep in the initial event that caused that joke. Mm-hmm. Even if you're trying to if you were taking a massive scalpel to it and trying to cut it down as much as possible, you have people referencing stuff that's happened earlier in the game, and then you have to if you edit too much, you presumably end up in a position where you have a massive web of different sections that you'd have to remove or keep.
Yeah, and part of the reason, or rather, part of the way that we prevent that from becoming a big problem, and this is sort of going into the next point, which is playing and DMing for an audience as opposed to for yourself, is that we will frequently pause the game and be okay, what are we going to do next? And we sort of plan out the next couple of scenes just as a sort of outline. We don't, we let the game and the dice rolling decide what happens, if things succeed or not. But it is worth its weight in gold to just take a moment and be okay, what do our characters want to do in the next scene? Because if you don't all decide on that, that's how you get stuff like arguing for an hour about what to do. It's like you could have just stopped the stream and figured out what to do, and it wouldn't have disrupted the flow like this. And also having a moment to like think about like what does my character want to do, and what are they gonna, who are they gonna interact with in this situation? Having a moment to stop and think about that by itself without having to do it during a scene sort of lets people get a better handle on what they want their character to do and what they will do. If you don't have a chance to think about it, you might not come up with some of the stuff that you would if you know what I'm getting at. I'm sort of talking in circles, but you get the idea. It's because I didn't stop to think.
I have two thoughts on it. The first is that in some ways that takes away from the organicness of a game, because you're playing for an audience and you're doing this and thinking about what the audience was like. You're not necessarily just reacting the way you would in a non-recorded game. The other is that maybe a normal non-recorded game could also benefit from the same treatment.
Yeah, that was going to be my rebuttal. Is like, actually, fair point, but like when I GM, that's just what I do anyway. Just be like, okay, guys, like what's next? Because that's part a GM tip you'll often hear is like the thing you're supposed to do to make a game good is give the players what they want, and there's really no better way to get that than like ask them like, what? Okay, cool guys, now that you're in this situation, like what would be some cool things you would want to do? And they tell you, and you're like, cool, and you let them do those things, and also introduce twists and complications, and that way everyone's engaged. Everyone's doing the thing they want. No one's sitting being like, I wish we could have, talked to this guy, but then we left. It's like, no, everyone gets to do that.
It's like, why didn't you just say that you wanted to talk to the guy? We could have spoken to the guy.
Exactly.
One thing that I do like that you do sometimes, though, is you just shout react. You just like, this happens, react, because too often as a GM, we have all sat at a table and gone, and then this happens, and we're met with abject silence.
Yeah.
Just a little cricket noise and a tumbleweed, and we're like, ta-da! Someone's looking at the phone, someone else is eating, someone else is looking sheepish, and someone else is like trying to do some maths with the core book about min-maxing their character, and we're like, guys...
Like that's one thing that bugs me, and it happens in a lot of shows that like characters like don't react to the things that are happening to them, and it's like, what? Like, come on, man, do it. And like especially like when one thing that always bugs me is like when players get into a rhythm of like razzing the NPC, and the NPC gets like brutally razzed for like 15 minutes, and it's like, you would never like do this in real life.
What does razzed mean?
Oh, it just mean is that not a thing you say on the Isle?
I feel like I might have heard it, but it's not a common saying, I'm afraid.
I guess a synonym would be zinged, where you're just like poking them, fucking around with. You're just like fucking around with them.
The third time we got there.
Yeah, making jokes at their expense, and it's like at that, like if that had happened to me as a GM, I would, and I think it did happen at one point where Cody was razzing a Men in Black character, and I had him just like attempt to murder Cody because he was like, "You are disrespecting me," and
that's
like,
a really strong reaction to disrespect.
Well, he was a legate of a transgalactic empire who thought that Earth was a backwater shit town.
That makes more sense. Yeah, I've only listened to the first 2 episodes so far. So, although I did enjoy the debate on your alien who was like, "Oh, it's nice to meet someone else of faith," and one of your players was like, "Hang on, why does this alien believe in Jesus?" And you're like,
it just does.
Thinking very quickly.
Different, people from other worlds can believe whatever they want. Don't judge them.
Yeah, no, we do stuff like that. I mean, obviously, people always do things in roleplay games they wouldn't do in real life. For example, in a D&D game last week, we captured a goblin, and I said, well, we were interrogating them. How many bugbears are at your main camp? And he said 9, and the players are all like, okay, so there's 9 bugbears. So I was like, oh, hang on. Count to 9. I'm like, I don't trust that this goblin can count. Let's not take his word for it. So we made him count as high as he could count, and he counted over his hands twice, and he got to 20, which is quite good. I'm like, is that as far as you can go? He's like, yeah. And then when we're done interrogating him, the players are like, all right, we should probably kill him now. I'm like, hang on, cut one of his fingers off and said count to 20.
Incredible.
Because I wasn't sure this goblin could do it without all 10 of his fingers. It turns out he could.
Good for him. He still got the stuff.
Honestly, the second time I told him to count to 20, he just said, fuck you. To which point I was just like, that's a great way to lose another finger. Yeah, no, I was all for letting him go after that. He impressed me. But the rest of the party, who were supposedly the good players, were all looking at me a bit askance, like, that's a bit dark, that's a bit harsh, that. And I'm like, hey, I'm all for letting him go now. He counted to 20. Like, that's a good goblin. That goblin's got a future. And they were just like, we can't just let the goblin go. I'm like, well, now who's evil? Huh? You want to murder him. So, yeah, we all do things in roleplay games we wouldn't do in real life.
True.
I think that's the point I'm making.
Yeah. There's a difference between doing things you wouldn't do in real life and doing things no one would do, which is to say, like, not react to a crazy thing going on. Or if someone's, like, telling you how... what am I trying to say? If someone's, like, giving you a quest and your character is an adventurer by trade, not listening to them and instead fucking with them for 20 minutes.
Yeah. So the last episode we did was how to be a good player. And two of the things that came out of that were be proactive, not reactive, and make the kind of character who would willingly participate in the kind of story you're going to tell. If you make a character that would not participate in the events that are happening, that would be like, oh no, I'm not going there, it's too dangerous, then you're just being awkward and getting in the way of the game. You're not participating, you're actively hindering. Very, very good advice. We went into more depth on that. But that was the sort of sum it up point. So you make the game flow, you make the game go on. How do you ensure that it keeps flowing and that you've said you pause and you discuss which scenes you want to do, but how do you do that without giving away your plot to the players?
Good question. I guess, okay.
You don't want your players to know what's going to happen, do you?
Exactly. I mean, and okay, it's sort of a two-pronged thing, where one, the questions that I ask them, like, what do you want to do next, are the answers that I'm looking for is more like, who do you want to talk to and, like, what about? Like, is there anything going on that you'd like to investigate further? Is there anything that you would like to discuss with another character? Is there anything that is resonating with your character, like, this is making me uncomfortable, or, like, this is pretty, like, relevant to what I think about X, Y, and Z? So that's not exactly stuff that has to do with the plot. It's more of like, what do you want to do to engage with what has happened so far? Okay,
that's good, because that way your players feel engaged and proactive, and they're actively being prompted to make decisions instead of you're just making events happen around them. Because what you want is a player-led game.
Yeah, it also forces them to talk to each other, which, I mean, like, good players will do that, but even a good player benefits from, like, having a moment to think about, like, what would be interesting to talk about with another player. And also, like, I don't tell them what the NPCs want and are doing behind the scenes. That's always a secret. They're never going to know that. And yeah, even the scenes that they, like, plan in advance, they never go the way that we think they will. Even if there's no dice rolling involved, it's just a straight conversation. It always goes somewhere different, and then at the end, we have new directions to go to that we'd never even considered.
And that's the beauty of roleplay games in general, really, isn't it? You know, it's not scripted, it's not linear, people can go wherever. It's also one of the great difficulties of GMing.
Yeah, running around behind the players. No, don't touch that. Don't touch that.
Like, oh, we've got all these great scenes planned out. The problem is the players all just got in a car and drove to Mexico.
Now we have Mexico scenes. What do you want to do in Mexico, guys?
You're like, I had a whole game planned out in Canada, but the players have left the country.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to adjust now.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to stop here because, yeah, the place you've gone, that planet, I've got to write the whole map.
And I think that's a strength of Shuffle Quest, is that we do short arcs that are all part of the same campaign, but each arc is sort of its own thing. It's self-contained. They can have different sort of flavors. So if we go off the rails in one arc, which we have, if you've listened to Arc 3 in the world of Sonic the Hedgehog, you will know that this is the case. But as off the rails as you get, when it's over, we go back to, we reset. We go to someplace new.
You know, in your first episode, when you described the suits, and everyone's guessing, I was like, oh, the Matrix. Well, I was just in my head, like, going, come on, guys, Blues Brothers.
That would be such a good RPG.
It's like, why has no one guessed Blues Brothers yet?
Holy shit, now I want to do a Blues Brothers arc so bad.
Oh, wait, we're gonna have a discussion, like, later in this episode, entirely about, like, which worlds you're planning to go to, and have you thought of X, Y, and Z?
Cool. Excellent.
Although we have to limit that to not spoiling the show for other people. But yes, there's a lot of stuff about that in here. We touched on it earlier when you're playing, the difference between playing face to face and remotely. Because I think the thing that's interesting, I know you mentioned, and we'll touch on it again later, that the main cast always record face to face, but sometimes you have NPCs as guests who might record remotely. And I wonder how that dynamic works, because I personally really struggle running games over Discord, which is how Mike and I are running games at the moment.
Because we live very far apart. It's not very far apart from America. People drive this far to go to the fucking supermarket in America.
Yeah. A few 100 miles. I'll go to that Shake Shack. I suppose, how do you handle dealing with that when you have to have people remotely? And what are your thoughts on face-to-face versus remote?
I think, they're both very valid ways of doing it. Obviously, there have been great shows that do it both ways. Neither one is better than the other. It's really just a preference thing. For us, we have been lucky enough to be in Chicago, where there are nearly infinite numbers of extremely funny improvisers and weird comedy nerds. So we have been lucky enough that actually all of our special NPC guests have been in Chicago and have been in studio. The only time that we've done remote recording is twice for bonus episodes, and they did not go super well from the technical standpoint. I'd say they both went. Okay, I'll get into it. The first one was in a bonus episode we did with Cody, who was one of the main cast members who had to leave because he moved to Los Angeles, and so we were trying to basically do a bonus episode with him, and at the same time test out how feasible remote recording is. And he had a bad connection on our call. Like, he was about a half-second delayed from all of us. So while all of us in the room were able to sort of like riff and joke at our usual rhythm, Cody, who, if you've listened to the show, is like the comic relief character. He is the one who was always quipping. Since he was on that delay, he was not able to engage almost at all. And it was a big problem. The episode did not go as well as possible because of that. And also, when he sent us his MP3, it was slightly out of sync, so we couldn't even use it anyway. So that's just a lost episode forever, which is a shame because it was very funny. And our other remote recording was when we did the Pasión de las Pasiones episode, which we played with Brandon Leon-Gambetta, who is the designer of Pasión de las Pasiones, an RPG about telenovelas.
That was so fun. So fun.
So since he was the GM of that game and not a player who had to like jump in with jokes, it was much easier for him to deal with the delay on the call, because we would like ask him something, wait for him to respond, and then respond to that. The issue with that is that just editing it all together was kind of, editing it together was much, much harder than having all of the tracks being from people in the same room, to the point where it took like 2 to 3 times the length of a normal episode to edit. And because of that, yeah, I think that because we're always going to have a bunch of people in the room, we're going to have to always do that. Like, if you're going to be face-to-face or remote, it has to be all of one or all the other. At least that's, for me, that's how I do it to avoid, these kinds of problems.
That makes sense, because if you're doing it like we are over Discord, it's easier to record using the bot, who's recording everything that goes through the channel. When you are doing half and half, you're trying to splice that audio and sync it up manually.
And having done that for a few episodes of this podcast, never again.
Yeah, it was tough stuff. There were many times where I had to like take Brandon saying like yes, haha, from like earlier in the episode and use it in a different spot because like him actually saying yes, haha was like stepped on, and he was talking at the same time as one of us because of the delay, and it wouldn't work, so I had to just clip it and move it over.
Did anybody in the comment section notice that you were just sound biting a player into the game?
Nope.
I mean, I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, like, it also was a super long episode. It was more like he would say a joke while we were also talking, and then we'd be all like, huh, what? What did you say? And he would say it again. We'd be like, we didn't hear you. And he would say it a third time, and we'd laugh. And I'd just be like, and let's just have him say the joke
By which
once.
time, all the tone of the joke's lost, and he's just shouting it at people in frustration.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have the first joke, then the last laugh, and it's seamless. It just took 20 minutes.
Movie magic.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned having a guest DM, and you've also had lots of guest, like quite large NPCs, really played by guest actors. And I wonder how you handle that, because I mean, for example, having someone play the Ginormous in the Mad Max arc, like, I mean, he has an amazing voice.
Yeah,
I don't know how you found him, but best voice for that role. But also, how do you handle guest input? I mean, are they kind of there as is it? I mean, it must be different from person to person, but are they there to provide like story that you've written for them, or are they very much playing the game themselves while in an NPC role?
I think it's sort of a hybrid role of player and co-GM, because since the guest NPCs are always playing people who are native to the world that the arc is set in. So, like, while our main characters are from the world of Dungeons and Dragons, and they are traveling to new pop culture worlds, the guest NPCs are unaware that there is any world except the one that they're from. So they are, by definition, going to know a lot more about the setting, what's going on, the conflict in it, and they're going to be already pretty entrenched in the world. So what I do is when I get a guest who has agreed to be on the show, I let them know what world they're going to be in, and I set a date to like meet with them before we record and just go over like, what kind of character do you want to be? And like anything goes. It can be a character who helps the party. It can be a enemy, as the Ginormous was. It can be, someone who's just sort of like comic relief. It can be someone who is crucial to the plot. I let them deal with it, and I run with what they want when I, write sort of the main thrust of the arc. And, I have to just get from them, like, what kind of character are they playing? What do they already know? And, like, what do they want to do in the world? And then once I have those three things, I can sort of build the shape of the arc around that. For the Ginormous specifically, I knew, spoiler, I knew an event had to happen in that arc because of real life circumstances that were not part of the plot. And then when Ian, who does have the best voice, just said that, like, yeah, I want to be a warlord, I was like, that's perfect. You're going to be a warlord. Here's the thing you have to do. And he's like, that's excellent. I'm fine with that. And it's been pretty good so far. I mean, like, there are definitely
times... I think his
where...
response should have been shiny.
Yeah. I mean, he is fantastic. But there have been times where I have to have a private meeting with the guest NPC, like mid-arc, being like, okay, now that this has happened, how has that changed how your character feels? What do you want them to do? How do you want them to be at the end?
Plot accordingly. That makes
exactly
sense.
And since they know, obviously, they know more about the world than the players, they're always going to have an upper hand and sort of like, what is the deal? I never want to have them be like key characters. They're never going to solve the problem. Like, it's always the NPCs. If the heroes never came, the NPC wouldn't get what they want, and they would stay as they are. But they still have to have like a driving force and a desire, a vested interest in the world, so that they stick around and are fun.
So the next question really is, how did you have the idea for Shuffle Quest? Because obviously we've discussed the sheer number of podcasts that are available, or actual live plays or streams, and you kind of need a USP at this point. You either need an existing fan base to play off, which a lot of the things do have. Like, some of them are going to play off the fact that they're Wizard of the Coast officials, some of them are going to play off the fact that they're Geek and Sundry affiliated, or that they have celebrities on, you know? Like, I'm assuming that the Shuffle was your USP. Is that one of the reasons you chose to do it? And how did you come up with the idea of what it was?
For sure, that is the reason that we chose to do it. Like, if a show is just like some friends play D&D and that's their hook, I'm like, guess what I'll never listen to is your show. Just because, I don't have that much time. It's gotta be exciting and new. So I never would have started a show if it were not that it had a hook that I hadn't seen any other show have. And the way that we came up with it is Joe Anderson, who plays Ruddy on Shuffle Quest, just told me one day, like, hey, my buddy Mike found the Men in Black RPG at a thrift store. Can you believe that? And I'm like, ha ha ha, what a silly RPG. I can't believe that's real. And he's like,
play it immediately.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, like, there are so many weird pop culture RPGs that are licensed in the 90s. What a weird time. And like, I just had like a fucking light bulb. I'm like, you bitch, we're playing that. This is what we're doing. And he's like, ha ha ha, we should have like Olmec from Legends of the Hidden Temple be our quest giver. As a joke, he said that. And I'm like, yeah, idiot. Yes, that is it now. And I forced him to do it. And it's been a very, very fruitful. Like, to the point where like I when I was like putting together the design document and like getting everything together, I was like furiously searching to make sure this hadn't been done before. And like a month after the show, I found to my horror that there was a show called Adventure on the One Shot Podcast Network, which is this big deal RPG network in Chicago that I want to be part of, but they don't know who I am and they won't be my friend. But the Adventure podcast, I thought was the same premise as Shuffle Quest, and I was ready to like fucking throw myself out the window. But turns out what it actually is just a fan fiction show where every arc is completely self-contained and the characters are not original creations, but characters from the world. Like in Pokemon, they played as Ash and Brock, etc. And I'm like, oh, thank God. So, yeah.
How long is it before you go to Pokemon?
That was... Spoiler alert, that's our lost episode. That's where we went on the episode where Cody's track didn't work.
You're going to go to, like, you should go to Pokemon and then straight to Digimon and have all the players be like, what kind of fucking rip-off world is this?
Incredible.
Or Monster Rancher.
Monster Rancher? I know about Monster Hunter, not Monster Rancher.
Oh, Monster Rancher. Bro.
Oh, that's the one. Is that the one where they, like, turn into coins or something?
Yeah.
Yes,
like
I remember that.
And the computer game had this really unique thing where you generate your monsters by putting a different CD in, and it would read the coding on the CD and generate one of the monsters from the numbers. Had a really decent cartoon for kids as well at the time.
Yeah, it was reshown on, I think, BBC in the UK, so that's how I came across it.
It was one of the first young children's cartoons to have permanent death in it as well.
Wow.
Because when some of the monsters were turned back into these coins, or into these discs, they're effectively dead. They were just gone.
Huh. Jeez.
So you've played a lot of different systems so far, and you've got more coming up. I was wondering if you can give a best and worst out of the ones you've played. Because, I mean, you're obviously picking systems that are supposed to be amusing.
For system and for setting. They're different things.
Okay. So the best... are we counting bonus episodes, or are we only going with, like, the main arc?
Whatever hell you want, man. It's your show.
Okay.
I mean, this isn't what that was.
So
this is my show. Do what I tell you.
Fair enough.
Dance, monkey, dance.
No. So, like, by the sort of nature of the show, we don't get to play the systems we want to. We have to play the systems that are for that world. So the best ones that we have played have been for our bonus episodes, where we sort of, like, yeah, we sort of like leave canon behind, and like this is just a fun aside. And the two that we did recently with Brandon Langambetta and Nathan Palletta, where we played their games Pasión de las Pasiones, which is a powered by the apocalypse game about telenovelas and romance, and Impa the Perverse, which is Nathan Palletta's game about Jacksonian American Gothic horror, where people who are afflicted by an imp that impels them to do terrible deeds have to fight monsters while simultaneously preventing themselves from giving in to their imp. Those games fucking own. They are so good, and everyone should play them. They're creative and unique and unlike any other RPG I've played. Fucking fantastic. So good. And, you know, the reason that they're that good is because we chose to play them because I wanted to, because I saw them both, you know, promoting their new games. I think Pasión de las Pasiones is still being designed. Impa the Perverse is fully kickstarted and has its playtest packets available. Like, I saw them promoting those games. So I'm like, get on the fucking show. Get on the show. I want to play them. As for the main arcs, for Mad Max, we did Apocalypse World, which is the sort of genesis of all the powered by the apocalypse games. That's the apocalypse that's powering them. And it's a little rough. I mean, like, you can tell that all the powered by the apocalypse games that came after have improved on the formula a lot. But man, oh man, the core of it is so tight and works so well. And after the first 3 arcs, it was such a tonic to get a real good game.
Implying that some of your games are bad. Great advertising. No, none of the games are bad. I've had a blast listening to Shuffle Quest. It's very funny. I'm a big fan of the sarcastic paladin.
He is fantastic. I mean, just because
he's also sarcastic.
The games are bad, but the show where we play the game is good.
Yeah, it's definitely there's a lot of fun in seeing you come up against the edges of some of these systems, like the Dragon Ball Z system with this stupid number of D6.
Mm-hmm.
I've always maintained that a good GM and group can make a good game out of a bad system, and a substandard GM or group can make a great system a terrible experience.
Yep.
The hobby is not about the system that you're using. You can even play systemless. Like at Student Nationals in the UK, which is a huge event every year, where people raise money for charity and they play games. Systemless is a category. You go in, there are no dice, there are no numbers, there is just a GM giving you choices and environments to interact with. And it's a really fun category to play in because it's so refreshing. Like, good luck min-maxing your character when there's no numbers, bitch. We should get Rob Soulsby to play a systemless game. It'll be hilarious.
I mean, the Sonic arc basically turned out to be systemless because the system we used was an unofficial fan game that was written in a 24-hour game challenge.
Was it called Gotta Go Fast? Because it should have been.
It was called Sonic the Hedgehog, an unofficial RPG.
God damn it, it should have been called Gotta Go Fast. Did anyone sing the awesome song from Sonic Adventures 2? Escape from the...
I think I did when I revealed where they were.
Escape from the city. I used to play that level over and over just to listen to that song.
It's the only good level. But yeah, that game, the only stats are strength, speed, and airtime. And it was a very non-physical, like, challenge-based arc, so we basically never rolled any dice. It was just like a big improv game. It ruled. I loved it.
So would you say that was the worst system then? Like, just because it didn't really end up working?
No. The worst system was, as you suggested, Dragon Ball Z by a fucking mile. Or
that
kilometer,
doesn't sound terrible at all. What's wrong with you? Just get that bucket, roll that bucket.
It is... Okay, so I maintain that this is a game... That this is a document that was not designed to be a game, but just to be sort of like a teenager who thinks Dragon Ball Z owns, writing like fanfic / a fucking treatise about why Dragon Ball Z is so good.
Like, I've not read this system, but I can only imagine, and I hope it works this way, that the longer you spend going, the more dice you accumulate.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yes!
There are some steps to it, but like one of the actions you can do is bear down and go, and that's how you generate power, which is like, that's a resource you can use to shoot beams.
It writes itself.
Yeah. Like, I think that this system only exists so that the guy writing it can, in the sidebar, be like, the Dragon Ball Z characters are really strong. Like, because like you end up rolling like 100, 200, 1,000 D6, and it's like Superman can only do 5 D6 when he punches, but when Goku punches, it's 500 D6. What does that tell you?
It tells me that you are a biased source writer. That's what it tells me, you tool.
Yeah. And like the thing that kills me that I didn't even realize until like we were done is that like when you get to that level of dice, like there's no point in rolling. Because it's like the law of large numbers means it's just going to be average. You're just going to have the number of dice you're rolling times 3.5, and that's it every time. Don't roll. It's so fucking bad.
You've played a lot of systems so far, and I know you have other systems coming up that you couldn't reveal. But I came up with we've done a few games in the past on the show, and I came up with a bit of a quiz, slightly borrowed from an idea they have on Morris's RPG podcast, where they read out the names of Kickstarters and get.
Did you say
guests.
Morrissey's?
Morris. It's
Don't get me wrong. If Morrissey did an RPG podcast, it would have viewer numbers. I just don't think I would be among them.
I've started listening to it. I really like this podcast. They have like a fake like evil villain character that they interview each week, and a fake adventurer character who's massively up himself. It's very good, very good. But on there they have a thing where they ask their guests, they read out the names of Kickstarters and try and get their guest to guess what Kickstarter it is. In a similar vein, I have found some obscure RPGs.
Oh yeah,
and obviously I couldn't go down the route that you're doing of pop culture RPGs because they tend to be name of thing RPG. So, for example, the Firefly RPG is just called that. So I've got.
Is it as overrated as the show? Oh,
I have no idea how good the RPG is. So I've got 2 categories here. The first set, there's 5, and these are. Can you guess the pop culture world? So these are the ones that they're trying to be a pop culture world. They may or may not be official, and. But the name doesn't contain the name of the thing.
Let's do it.
So let's do it. The first one, I think, is a nice, easy one. The One Ring RPG.
That's going to be Lord of the Rings.
Goatsy.
Jesus fuck. Boo.
We do not need an RPG for Goatsy. That's an episode title.
If you're listening, Google that.
Don't
do it
at
work. Don't do it at work. Or on a work device.
So, okay, yeah, that's definitely the Lord of the Rings one. That's the official Lord of the Rings RPG. The next one, Pony Finder.
Pony Finder?
Yep.
My initial, when I hear pony, I'm like, that's definitely My Little Pony, but why would you need to find it?
I think it's because, it's the unofficial My Little Pony RPG, because an official one is apparently coming out soon.
Oh, wow.
I believe it's called Pony Finder because it is based on Pathfinder.
Oh, God damn it.
Yeah. These are roughly in order of difficulty. So starting with the easiest one and working their way through. The third one is Mashed.
Is it Mashed?
It is indeed Mash. It's
or is it Bodger and Badger?
Bodger and Badger is the obscure British TV show we really need an RPG.
About a man and a badger who make a lot of mashed potato.
So Mashed is indeed Mash. And now the names get less related to the thing. So
awesome.
This one is more a kind of, I suppose it's more of a genre, but it does mention some specific things in the title, in the description on TV Tropes. So Tubo's Marvelous Wish Granting Engine.
No, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
It's not Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, no.
Tubo's Marvelous Wish Granting Engine? Man, oh man, I got nothing. I'm going to guess it's an anime.
I mean, that's pretty close. It's a slice of life RPG, and it's inspired by Studio Ghibli and Adventure Time and things like that.
Okay.
It does point out that it even goes up to something as complex as Homestuck, because the internet loves itself.
Written by someone who was an important contributor towards Exalted. That's a very different game.
Yeah, no, she did 2 very different games. And the final one in the kind of culture world one, Macabre Tales.
Just Macabre Tales. I know it's not Tales from the Crypt because we played that one for our holiday episode. God, Macabre Tales? Oh, is it a Call of Cthulhu knockoff? Like they couldn't get the Lovecraft license from the public domain?
It is in a way, yes. That's essentially the answer. It is a pure Lovecraft RPG that is not. It doesn't want any of the stuff that has come since. It is only based on the original books by Lovecraft. None of the other stuff that's come up since. So it's like we just want to recreate the stories as RPG.
Yeah. No need to roll dice because you will always fail.
And then my other one is trying to guess the genre from game systems. If you're happy to carry on quizzing,
Sure.
So these ones, it's much more vague, and I think again vaguely in order of difficulty, with the last one just being ridiculous. So the first one is Bushido.
Well, it's gonna be samurai.
Western chivalry.
It is. It is definitely samurai. It's supposed to It's thematically based on movies such as those made by Akira Kurosawa. So it says in which the heroes are modestly superhuman, but not extraordinarily so. So yeah, very much that kind of movie. Number 2, Capes cows and villains foul.
Chickens. It's chicken run.
Superheroes.
That is definitely superheroes. Yeah.
I want to see Shuffle Quest Chicken Run or Shuffle Quest Wallace and Gromit.
Oh my god!
Did Chicken Run make it to the US?
Yes. I love
awesome.
that. I saw it as a kid. It ruled.
It is really. Yeah, I mean, I love all those movies. Next in this list, Hillfolk, which is one I'm actually intrigued to play. I've heard about it on a YouTube channel.
Inbred Hicks.
I would guess. I mean, you've already said Lord of the Rings, but it sounds to me. I'm thinking hobbits.
I'm thinking Hills Have Eyes. I'm thinking like Dale and Tucker versus Evil without the parody.
I suppose this is one where I thought it was easier than it was because I knew the answer already.
Wait, hold on. 80s mining crisis during Thatcherism.
No, it's Iron Age drama. The reason I've heard of it is because of Lindy Beige on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I immediately thought of The Hills Have Eyes and like yeehaw, like in the woods, hick, inbred American horror. Yeah, Midwesterners, I think.
Yeah, you got it. Right on.
So, what else have I got on this list? Gangbusters.
Definitely Prohibition era, like speakeasy busting.
This is one of those things where I figured you'd probably get it straight away just because I hadn't heard the term. It's a 1920s USA crime RPG. What else have we got? We've got In Nomine.
In
Nomine, which is Latin, if that's
something to do with names, apparently.
Yeah, I'm just probably Romans because it's in Latin, ancient Roman times.
It's actually I think it comes from In Nomine Patri.
I hope it's like an RPG without any nouns, no proper nouns.
That would be interesting. It's actually kind of Christian mythos, angels versus demons.
Okay.
RPG.
So blasphemy, excellent.
Then there's one that if you've heard of it, you will just know because I've played it. Spirit of the Century.
Oh gosh, I haven't played that, but that's like Indiana Jones' swashbuckling adventure.
Yes, exactly. It's so yeah. That's Fate Systems. Well, it's technically Fate Third, but there's an upgrade for 4. Doing pulp RPG. It's a pulp RPG, so Indiana Jones, etc. Then there's Leagues of Adventure, which is on a kind of similar theme, I suppose.
I hope it's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
I'm hoping it's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Those are both like essentially it. It's kind of steampunk Victorian.
Yeah, being fair, there's some crossover between those two suggestions.
Yeah. Like it's very much. Then we get into ones where it's like there could be many answers, I suppose. So Blood and Bronze.
Gosh.
Coming at the Olympics.
I like that.
Killing each other to get third place. I mean,
it's just like blood, sweat, and tears, and I only got third place.
Like ancient fucking Abyssinians in the Bronze Age.
Oh, that is it's Mesopotamian role playing.
Oh hell yeah!
Can you imagine if there was like a board game where the goal of the game was to come third place? That would piss everyone off so much. Where you win by coming third.
That would be really interesting. It'd be like a reverse of the mechanic in Tigris and Euphrates.
It just really wind people up who are really good at winning.
Yeah, give someone a bunch of points and they're like, how dare you? I'm in first place now.
It's like, you've lost because you're in first place. I don't understand.
So we've got 2 more and then an honourable mention, which I think is obvious. So number 9 is Hellfrost, Land of Fire.
That's a misnomer.
Yeah, there's frost and fire.
I think Hellfrost is the base system and Land of Fire is a specific...
I think they're just getting shit wrong. Is it based on Dante's Inferno?
It's not, but I like that as a suggestion.
Is it a supplement for sort of like a Vikings RPG where they go to hell and it's fiery and they don't like it?
So I have a feeling Hellfrost probably is Vikings, but Land of Fire is specific. I think it's just the same system set somewhere else.
Is it in a desert?
It is.
Is it Arabia?
Yep. It's It's an Arabian Nights RPG.
So they've gone and made a Viking game, but they've then made a theoretically Arabic supplement.
Yeah, I think that's what they've done there. I'm not 100% sure. Number 10, which I don't think you'd guess if you didn't have the answer in front of you. Macho women with guns.
I mean, it seems like it answers itself.
It does, but
it seems like it was written just to upset Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's good
it does, but it's the actual what is the setting as opposed to what the characters are like that I'm going for.
I'm gonna guess fucking World War One. No, 2.
No, it's set in a near future America where society has collapsed due to the misdeeds of the Reagan administration.
Hell yeah! I mean,
which I figured was way too specific for anyone to ever guess.
I think we're rapidly approaching that being current day.
Yeah, everything that's happening now flows from him.
And the final one I put in as a list, the final one I put in on the list is like an honorable mention because the name gives it away. But I discovered via TV Tropes that there is a Maid RPG.
I own that.
Oh, do you? I didn't.
I never bought it. It was a gift.
Ah.
From a certain Will.
Ah, okay.
Will gave it me, and I've never even opened it. I just looked at it. I'm like, I'm probably never going to play this. I appreciate the gesture, but like, hold on. I just feel like it's going to be very creepy to sit at a table with my friends and be like, "Oh, senpai, like, would you like another cup of tea?" Like, the whole game's about pleasing the master.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, the thing I found interesting about it on TV Tropes is that they describe it and they're like, it doesn't matter what the setting is as long as there are maids, a master, and a mansion. And so it's like you can go play it in space, and it's the same game. And I was like, that's interesting, but
I don't really want to play a harem game where I'm the harem.
It doesn't. It intrigues me, but I don't really want to play it.
Y'all are cowards. Sounds great. It's all pretend.
Right. You know what? I'll play it if you do it on Shuffle Quest and invite me. That's the only way I'll play that.
We'll see.
That quiz maybe went on a bit longer than I thought it was going to. So I came from D&D originally, and then I've played a lot of systems, and I find that going around and playing different systems really makes me come back to D&D with different ideas. My D&D is definitely more story-based than it used to be, for example. It's not just go fight the dungeon.
No, not just dungeon raids. It's no longer GM versus players.
Yeah, I like to have an overarching story, and I feel I've always done that since I've started running D&D because I've played in other systems. And so I was wondering, Tom, what have you learned from trying all these different systems? Has it helped you as a DM, or have you learned some things not to do in an RPG because some of them are so bad?
No, I for sure have learned a lot. I mean, and it was something that you brought up. One of you two. You fucking Britons all sound the same to me. I'm joking. You don't. I just don't remember who said it. But one of you mentioned this earlier that like it's not about the system, it's about the group. And after played a bunch of games, including very bad games, that rings so very true. It's not. I mean, you can have a very bad game like the Dragon Ball Z game where interacting with the rules is a hateful chore that makes you very mad. But like, if everyone is on the same page, if everyone has similar goals as to what they want to get out of the game, that will make it so that even, a RPG system that is working against you will allow you to have a good time. At the same time, I've learned that some games just like are not for a group, and you can have a good time with them, but like a game always, just by the nature of it having rules, is pushing you towards a certain type of experience. It's pushing you toward the experience that the rules are talking about. And there are just going to be times when like a group of players who may be like proactive and hilarious and great and interested and engaged just like are not going to enjoy what the system is offering, even if the system is good. And just learning to recognize that and sort of work against it, or not working against it, recognize that and sort of ameliorate it, work around it is a very very important skill to have. In real life, what you do is be like, guys, it seems like this setting and system is not working for us. Let's change it. But for Shuffle Quest, where we're locked into a recording schedule, there have definitely been times when I'm like, guys, we're just going to sort of wing it for the rest of this. Let's just have fun.
I haven't had time to memorize the Ars Magica magic system, so we're just going to have to make it up.
Yeah. And also, when you try a lot of systems, you sort of learn what works overall. Like, what are the things that keep on working from system to system? What does your group like, just in general? And then once you know that, you can sort of intentionally bring it with you in any system. And if everyone knows the sort of thing that they like to do, it's fairly easy. I mean, not easy, but like it's doable to map that onto weird and goofy systems.
What is your favorite game mechanic that you've come across?
Ooh, that's a great question. And it is from Pasión de las Pasiones, which is to say, I love when there are mechanical rewards to role-playing in character. And the way that Pasión de las Pasiones does that is every move that you make, in a normal Powered by the Apocalypse game, you roll 2d6 plus your stat. But in Pasión de las Pasiones, there are no stats. Instead, every move has 2 questions that you are asked before you roll the dice. Questions that if you answer yes to, it indicates that you are behaving in character. And for every yes you answer, you get +1 to your roll. And also your playbook, which is like your class, has a question that you ask every single time that you roll a die. Like for the Caballero, who is like the hero, he's like the gentleman who is the like romantic lead. His like playbook question is, are you behaving straightforwardly and without guile? And if you are behaving straightforwardly and without guile, you get +1 to your roll. And like if you're professing your love to someone, like you ask like, are you doing this like sincerely? And like, do they love you in this moment? So like even if you've never watched a telenovela and have no idea what the sort of tone is, just the nature of being a human who wants to min-max your rolls will force you to behave in character. And that's so good because it's really easy to get that disconnect between the crunchy mechanics and then I'm a character playing in a story. But the Pasión really marries them so well. They're inextricably linked. It owns.
You like that for the same reason I like Fate. Have you played with Fate before?
I have not. I know the basic gist.
Character creation in Fate, you get some skills, but you also get personality traits that you assign yourself, and you don't pick them from a list. There are examples where you get to define them. And it's really easy to try and make yourself a Mary Sue, but a Mary Sue doesn't get rewarded. So you get these little Fate point coins that are bartered between the GM and the players, and they allow you to, say, use a specific sort of high-level power or alter a scene. So I, as a player, with my 3 Fate coins, I can say, oh, we're trapped in a room with poison gas, but I'm gonna put a Fate coin forward, and I'm gonna say, okay, but there's a vent in the corner through which we can escape, and the GM can accept that Fate coin bribe because I now have less of them, and then we can escape through that thing that wasn't previously there. However, the GM can give you Fate coins by prompt triggering your personality traits. So if one of your personality traits is I have a wicked temper, the GM can be like, so how do you react to that? And you can go, well, I do this, and you can go, or do you lose your temper? And he'll slide the Fate coin towards you, and you don't have to take it. But he can try and tempt you to take on these flaws. If you don't have any flaws, he's never going to give you any goddamn coins, and you're not going to have much fun changing the scenes.
True enough. That's good stuff.
And the collaborative storytelling aspect of it. I mean, I keep using that phrase, and I know all RPGs are collaborative storytelling, but like there is a mechanical aspect to it, and as a DM, it really helps when I've run Fate. You know, having people be like, "Well, can't I just like come in on my Zeppelin or something like this?" And then you're like, "That's a great idea," and it kind of, or as you say, like they'll be like, they can pay with their Fate points to re-roll or to be better at an upcoming roll, because it makes sense for their character to do so.
And I'm guessing that your least favorite was the 1,000 dice.
Yeah, because that game has nothing but the dice. It exists only so that you can be like, I can't believe I'm shooting a 1,000 D6 energy beam.
If Shadowrun isn't enough for you, try Dragon Ball Z.
Drops a bucket of dice.
Like, there's no mention made in the rules for like investigation or social skills or storytelling. It literally, all the examples are about like two guys meet in an arena and they fight.
Yep, that's Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, but it's not fun.
Spoilers.
I suppose this is where we're going to get properly spoilery for stuff happening in Shuffle Quest. You mentioned earlier about Cody leaving and the Ginormous, and I was wondering, it was not something I expected to happen kind of fairly early into the cast. It came across to me because I think I joined in maybe after you'd had about 10 episodes or something, and I've been listening since then. So how did you go about dealing with that? I mean, I know how you did it in the show, but I mean, it must have been a tough time for everyone involved.
Should I just say what we're talking around or continue to be sort of coy about it?
That's up to you. I mean, we can put a big spoiler horn in before this. Whatever you want to say, basically.
I'm just going to go ahead and say it. What you're talking about is since Cody had to leave to LA, we had his character die in the fiction of the show. And the reason that was something that we could do in a way that was like, that made sense and was satisfying narratively is because Cody told me, like, when I asked him to be on the show, because like he was a good friend of mine, like an extremely funny person, and I knew I wanted him on the show. He told me, like, in his acceptance to be on the show, like, by the way, like, just so you know, I'm leaving in November and can't record after that. And so I was like, we'll make it work. And that year, which is more like 2/3 of a year, we were just recording like absolute mad. We had set a goal that we wanted 4 complete arcs that Cody was on, and it took a lot of fucking time, but we did it. Knowing in advance and being able to, not be taken by surprise by it was a absolute huge asset, because one, we all were prepared for it. No one knew but me and Cody that it was going to be a death. But everyone knew that Cody was leaving after Mad Max. So we were all sort of prepared for that. We all knew that we were going to have to get a new cast member. But, I was still able to keep it a surprise to everyone but, the Ginormous. The Ginormous knew that he had to kill Tarek at some point. I didn't tell him how it was going to happen. I just, like, by the end, like, he's going to need to die. And yeah, Cody knew that, like, this was his last arc, and he was definitely playing up sort of the, Tarek growing from a sarcastic asshole to, like, a self-sacrificing hero. And he made that sort of a long play through the entire arc. And yeah, I think it really worked, and would not have if we didn't know far in advance that it was something that was going to happen. If this happened, if like I, heard from another cast member, like, hey, I just found out I'm moving for a new job in a month, we'd be absolutely fucked. Because one, we haven't been planning for it the whole time. We haven't been like, there's not going to be any sort of satisfying resolution to their arc as a character. And there's not going to be an organic way to like see them off.
I mean, I'm very glad that you had that knowledge and did that, because the whole build up, and it's a comedy podcast, but the whole slowly seeing him change over all that time, and then actually leading into that episode, like I mean, on the Shuffle Quest Discord, we've had, as people were reacting to that episode, and I was like, I mustn't read because I know something big is happening. And then it was properly sad and properly amazing, and I mean, for a podcast that normally makes me laugh so much, it was just amazing to suddenly feel different emotions and be like, oh no, I'm very sad. But it was very well done. And I suppose that leads into how you handled emotions on the show, because you then had like a whole period to decompress in the Olmec's head recently, and you've also had like the Fear joining. So we had those fun episodes in including her ridiculous sword buying antics, which was just brilliant. Like, I love the idea of getting your normal cast members in, your existing cast members in as NPCs, and just rolling with it as they normally do, because that was very funny.
I mean, like, for sure, we did not want to, because we recorded the Olmec episode where, we all mourn a death of a friend, and it's like very downbeat. We recorded that like pretty soon after the Mad Max, and we were just like, this doesn't seem. This seems like a lot of just body blows right in a row. And so we had those bonus episodes with Impet the Perverse and Pasión de las Pasiones that we just sort of had around. We didn't know when we were going to release them. And we're like, let's just have like a little break. Put out these goofers. People can decompress. And then Fia comes and is hilarious and charming, and we all love it. And then once we've sort of like reacclimated to like, oh, this is a fun comedy goofer show, then it's like, no, but also you'll recall that our good friend was decapitated not 4 hours ago. And the way that, I mean, if the emotions are ever like good and real and make you feel things, that is 100% Gwyn Fulcher, who plays Omi Heck. She is a trained actor and is extremely good and makes us all be better because we have to reach her level, or at least get as close to it as possible, because she never half-asses it. She is always 100% serious, or rather, she always takes her character 100% serious and acts as an actor would with any role. And she kicks ass and is the reason the show is as good as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've commented before on the Discord about how much I enjoy Omi's bits, and I mean, she makes me laugh so much, I think, as well. That's part of it. I mean, everyone on the show makes me laugh, but I'm getting into a bit too much of being a fan here, I suppose. I'm just like, it's very good. I enjoy it. You should keep doing it. It's great.
I will.
So I have one question. Is Shuffle Quest your full-time job, or is it a hobby?
Oh Lord, no! It is by far a hobby. We make like $170 a month on Patreon, which is like real good. Yeah,
we make a pound.
Yeah, we make a single dollar from one of our.
No, it's less than it's more than $1.
But
it's more than $1 for now, but it might not be in a couple of months.
Oh boy, topical.
Thank you, Theresa May and David Cameron.
But no, we all have full-time jobs. And Shuffle Quest is very much a hobby for all of us. The money, pays for hosting. We're doing like an AdWords campaign on Google. I have no idea if that works, but
I'm trying to remember how I came across the podcast. I feel like it just got suggested at me by the internet, so maybe that worked.
Maybe. A lot of our core fan base is fans of Cody's podcast, Tomfoolery. Which, if you haven't listened to Tomfoolery, oh my, you should. It is very good. It is a show where Cody has on comedians and they read terrible books and talk about them. A lot of them are just bad fiction books, but a lot of them are like insane conspiracy theory books and like extremely evil right-wing books. So One big thing, I suppose, is our final point on Shuffle Quest, and we'll let you get away. You've given us a lot of your time today, and we're very thankful for that. Of all of the communities I've been involved in for a show, this is definitely the one where I feel most like. I think it's partly because it's quite small. I've got in early, but the fact that you have this Discord and there's maybe there's a small group of people who are regularly posting in there, and I feel like everyone is quite comfortable on that Discord server. Like that is a really great community you've managed to forge around this. And then I suppose also that leads into like audience feedback. Like how much interaction do you get outside of the Discord server? Is it all through Discord? What's been the best thing for you for feedback and community? Oh man. Great question. I mean, the Discord has been fantastic. I opened it up just because like I saw that like it's a thing you're supposed to do with a podcast. And I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? And it's been super fun. Like I've been blown away by like the fact that there has been like a little group of people who like are talking and into the show. It feels great. And God, as for like community feedback, like I haven't really heard much outside of the Discord server, people like reacting to the show as they listen to it. We haven't done this for a while because there hasn't been an arc debut in a while, but one of the things we do is when we debut a new arc and sort of reveal the setting, we do a listening party in the Discord where we just have like a big audio channel where only the bot can speak, and the bot plays the episode, and we all chat about it. And those are always super fun, very goofy, and I love it a lot. But I mean, outside of the server, I don't really get that much feedback. Like our Twitter is pretty small. I mean, it's mostly because like I don't fucking know how to market, and I am very bad at social media. Like I just don't. I don't know how to do it. I know how to do it, and it's to be absolutely shameless.
I don't really have a Twitter or an Instagram, or it's not. I have a Facebook account and a LinkedIn account, and that's it. Really.
Yeah, I mean, keep it that way. It's not fucking worth it. Twitter just makes me angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's mostly been in the Discord, and that has been a huge help, just sort of in keeping your spirits up. I mean, with all creative ventures, you're gonna have that feeling where you're like, what's the point? Why am I even doing this? And, you know, having like evidence that there are at least like 5 people who care about the show is humongous. It is so good, and I'm really glad and grateful for all that. And that said, I always cringe when people like suggest locations and like plot threads, because I'm like, no, don't tell me, I don't want to use it. But I mean, on the other hand, like whatever, I'm not going to be mad at it. I'm just not going to look at it because I can't. I have to be blank. I can't steal.
Yeah, I suppose that's something we don't have with a podcast like this, or any of the other podcasts I'm involved in. They're all kind of, they're not scripted things. They're not, and they're not games. They don't have spoilers in the same way. You can tell someone the topic, and you know, I don't feel like you can be spoiled for a news podcast, for example. So yeah, I mean, that must be really difficult if people are like suggesting great ideas. You just have to shut yourself off from it to keep yourself doing what you're doing.
So, are you happy to get like suggestions for systems and settings, just not plots and stories?
Like I'm happy to hear them, but like I have like the next like several arcs already selected. So like I'm happy to hear like what people want, but like sorry if you don't suggest something that's already on the list, you're going to be disappointed.
Because I've got a very meta suggestion.
Gimme.
Do you remember the film The Last Action Hero?
I know of it.
It's worth watching. It's a really good Arnie pastiche on Arnie. But it involves a boy who accidentally lets a supervillain out of a movie into the real world, and then the hero from the movie follows him. So then you'd have people going into a movie world and then into a theoretically real world, and you'd be getting like really meta with which world is which. So you'd have fictional, if you get into meta fiction, if you've got fictional characters from fiction in the world coming into the world, and you start just getting really meta and confusing everything.
Dope. Excellent. I'll look into it. Actually, you know what? This is something that there has been recently kickstarted an RPG called Interstitial. I don't know if y'all have seen that that Kickstarter. Oh,
but
man.
If you send us the link, we will put it in the show notes.
Cool. It is a RPG that is based loosely on Kingdom Hearts. And when I read the description, I'm like, this is just Shuffle Quest, the game. It is literally about fictional characters traveling to different worlds and having adventures in them and meeting new people from different worlds. It's super good. I backed it for sure.
That does look interesting, and it's backed. It's happening. It's a real thing, which is always good to see with a Kickstarter. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I've not played enough Kingdom Hearts yet because I'm massively behind on video games.
Kingdom Hearts is a setting that if you took the Disney out of it would be so bleak that it would just make you cry. Right, and then they're just like, oh yeah, no, oh god, we actually need to sell this game. Quick, throw some Disney in it. Like it's so grim before you add Mickey Mouse. Like
incredible. I've actually never played a Kingdom Hearts. I just like that it is legitimately the Shuffle Quest RPG. Like, it would take so little to reskin this as, like, you're in Olmec's head.
So, yeah, no, this has been great. I've had a lot of fun talking about this. I'm definitely going to be listening to more Shuffle Quest. I suggest that everybody else does. You can definitely find them on social media, even if they are, to quote them, bad at it.
Yeah, please do.
I've got all the links to throw into the show notes. So
I've been listening to them on Shuffle Quest. Not on Shuffle Quest. They are brain. I've been listening to them on Pocket Casts.
Yeah, We're on all the podcast places.
And now we're all slowly melting as the universe slowly collides with another one.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. This was a great time.
No, it's been great. It's been really good to have you. Thank you for talking about your, not live stream, your actual play, your VOD, your podcast, and talk to us about other people's.
Yeah, it was legit.
I was just wondering if there's anything else you want to mention that you do outside of Shuffle Quest. I know you've got some other podcasts.
True enough.
Other podcasts of members of your cast.
I've already mentioned Tomefoolery, which is Cody's podcast. That is excellent. You should listen to that. Shuffle Quest, listen to Shuffle Quest. It's great. I used to do a show called You Don't Understand, which was about people bringing a piece of culture that the rest of the people on the show had not seen before. They have to watch it for the first time and sort of see if they like it as much as the person bringing it. It's no longer being produced because when I did that, I didn't know anything about audio editing, and it sounds terrible. So don't actually listen to that. I will be embarrassed if you do, because the sound is bad. That said, I also host a live monthly news satire show in Chicago called The Skewer. If you're in Chicago, you can come to the Cafe Mustache on the first Wednesday of every month and see it for real. But I imagine most people listening to this are not in Chicago. And surprise, good news, we record them and release them as a podcast called The Skewer Podcast. And that's very funny. We have extremely good guests and readers. We do op-ed essays about the news of the previous month. They're very funny and incisive and cogent. And then we close the show with the comedy debate that is very stupid and goofy. I really like it. We actually just did a mini show yesterday at a something called Lit Crawl, which is this Chicago-wide festival for live lit shows, which is what we call these shows that aren't quite stand-up, but like are sort of, where it's sort of like storytelling and reading essays, but you get it. Anyway, The Skewer, we're great. Listen to us there. That's all I got. I'm tired. I've been talking a long time. Fair
enough. Thank you very much for joining us. So as you said, all those links you've mentioned, I will get hold of them and I'll bung them in the show notes for anyone who's listening. You can find our Discord as well if you want to come and join us for these recordings in the future in the show notes. And there's how many things is available. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Reddit. You can find us in all the usual places. And you can also, if you want to support us, go to patreon.com/TTSS and you'll find us there. Excellent. I'm going to... did you want to say anything else at the end, Mike, or shall I just do Craig?
Yeah, I'm good. We can do. Well, we need to decide what the next podcast is.
You are correct. I almost forgot the whole point of our own podcast here. Wow.
So, for those of you who don't know, we pick a subject at random to talk about next week. The fact that we've had the same subject and different sub-subject twice in a row now is an anomaly, unless it happens again, in which case it'll start to be eerie. But Tom is now going to find out what our next episode will be.
Yes, drawn out of the hat. And this week, the hat is a silver kind of pearly king's hat that I picked.
You know what topic isn't in our list?
What?
Hats.
It is. It was added by Beth.
Is it? Oh, good job, Beth. Good job.
It Will? No, I think it might have been Will. It was Will who added it.
It's okay. Beth's got the credit now. Too late. Good job, Beth.
Because I think we said that Will would have to be a guest in his hat.
Well, if we do, we'll have to take a trip to the Hat Museum in Stockport. Because, yes, those
indeed.
things exist. There's a museum for everything.
Right, so we have 12 categories again. We have got travel. Our next topic will be travel, and our subcategory is going to be... flying.
Huh.
So, yeah. We can discuss the number of times I've been bored on a plane. I do know a pilot. I know a BA pilot. But
then you need to get the pilot on.
I have to see if I can get him on. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I also know a trainee pilot who might be easy to get hold of. We'll see. We'll see if I can get either of them on.
Maybe you should get them both on, and then the actual pilot can tell the trainee pilot all of the things he's going to hate about his job.
Well, maybe the fact that he's currently having to drive buses in order to pay for his air pilot training.
He's just looking at the sky like, one day I will be free. So thanks again to Tom 2 for joining us. And that's a sign off from Mike and Tom 1. I have many things.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tom 1 and Mike. Tom 2 had a great time.
Thank you for joining us. We've talked about making things flow, and I know it's something I sometimes struggle with on the podcast, so I'll cut this bit out. But yeah, like I'm not so. Mike is definitely a better host than I am of the podcast. I need to kind of force myself to go through the points.
He's going to cut that bit too.
Yeah. No, I mean, you've praised me and I've praised you on the podcast. I'm sure we can keep that in.